Welcome to the Full of Ourselves podcast, irreverent conversations about being a woman in business. If you know who you are and you're ready to take up space and be provocative and talk about things that you're not supposed to talk about, then you are in the right place. My name is Campbell and I'm a business and mindset coach leading the Good Girl Rebellion. I help the good girls go from good employee to great entrepreneur so they can craft the life that they love.
Yummy. And my name is Heidi Hinda Chadwick. I am a writer, a storyteller, and a creative life coach. I'm also the founder and creator of the Creative Genius Coaching Map, which is a guide and a framework for getting shit done, basically, and for living a life of creative freedom, of turn on, of juiciness, of pleasure, and of aliveness.
Yeah, and we're just so excited to be bringing you this podcast, this brand new podcast. And we wanted to spend this first episode talking about, why? Why are we talking about it? Why do we feel like we want to share? And also, why have we called it Full of Ourselves?
Why?
Because I think that's something is so important to us. So yeah, do you want to start? Why Full of Ourselves, do you think?
Oh, it's so good, isn't it? Even saying it, full of ourselves, just already just feels like I can feel my little feathers going. So we are both creators, solopreneurs, and coaches. We will talk a little bit more about how we met and how we've ended up working together a little bit later on in this episode. And mainly we are women in business. And this is what our podcast is very much about. And we thought we would start from and have the name of this and everything that we're about and what we stand for and what we believe in to be full of ourselves, because it has to begin with you, with us. Whatever we're putting out there, whatever our business is, whatever services and offerings, if we're not fully on board with what it is that we are doing, the results that we're getting, why we're doing it, what that means for us, how that matters, then we're already starting out in a slightly kind of squiffy, I would say, kind of path. And we are here and we are absolute firm believers that it is time for us as women to, and it's happening, and it's been happening for a while, which is incredible, but to really step up and take our places as pioneers, as entrepreneurs, as inventors, as leaders, as thought-provokers, as visionaries in the field of business. And for far too long, this idea of being full of yourself, which we'll explore a little bit more, has almost seemed like that's not what you do as a woman. You're growing up, weren't you, with all these messages of don't be too much, don't be too full of yourself, sit nice, look pretty, keep your mouth shut, be modest, don't have opinions and views, and don't rock the boat, and don't be this and that, and all of these don'ts, and do fit into this kind of nice little box of how you should be. And quite honestly, Anna, I think that's just created a lot of women walking around seething with anger and inner rage and passive aggressiveness, because that's actually not who we are. And it's time to reclaim our thrones when it comes to leading the way in business.
Yeah, I think that's so true. You're full of yourself. It's a rebuke. It's you need to be smaller. You're taking up too much space. And we're very much about we need to take up too much space.
Oh, I can feel that already.
We need to take up our own space. We don't want to shy away. We don't want to shy backwards. We want to be full of ourselves. And that is why it's such an important thing for us. And that's why when we were talking about what do we call a podcast? What, where's the message? Is the whole thing going to be about? It is about us stepping into the limelight. It's about us stepping on the stage, all of those kind of metaphors that we can use around being unapologetically who we are. And that is why it's so important to us. And that's why we've called it Full of Ourselves. So yes, we're full of ourselves and proud of it.
And hallelujah. And there is something about this. I was sharing with you, I think I've told you a story before, Anna, of in 2018 when myself and my sister traveled to New York for the first time. It was really exciting. And we get there and we go down to this jam night in the Lower East Side. It's so cool. Looks everything like in the movies. And the people that we were meeting, we were gobsmacked. It felt like we were in some kind of show, because everybody there was so full of themselves, that in that sense of, this is who I am. I'm amazing at this. I am that. You'll know me from this work, and I've been awarded this, and this is. And in one way, it was, from two northern lasses in England, especially growing up in England, where you really do not boast about who you are and your skills and your abilities. It felt so refreshing. It was a relief to go, bloody brilliant. You're not pretending. You're not squishing down. You're not, like that self-depreciation that we have here. It's like, why are we doing that to ourselves? We've all got this, what I call genius. I mean, that's what I work with, is the fact we all have a genius. Why not be proud of that genius? Be confident about it. Allow yourself to be full of that, whether it's qualities that you embody, whether it's particular talents or skills or abilities, wisdom that you share, knowledge, and so on. When we are full of that, it means that we are walking around already satiated by who we are. We're not grasping, we're not needy, we're not like kind of needing that validation. I mean, there's all these places that we will talk about in future episodes because they're very relevant to us, any of us as human beings. But we are feeling full in that who we are is enough. And then it's from that place of fullness that we can be so generous in the outpourings. And I think particularly with women in businesses, when there's so many things to be done, where things like burnout, exhaustion, taking on too much is so prevalent, that when we're actually coming from a place of full of ourselves and offering from that place, it's much more of a sustainable way to live. And it's also much more magnetic. You are walking your talk. You are an absolute belief of what it is that you're here to do and have to offer is the bee's knees. And we feel that we pick up on the resonance of each other.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think, again, this idea of full of ourselves, when it is used as a rebuke and it's used as a, trying to make you feel small or be smaller or take up less space, it's a really interesting thing. And I think we talked about it in terms of like, as a very British thing. It's like, don't get too big for your boots.
Yeah, that's it.
Don't shine too brightly. Don't, it's all of those kinds of things. Don't boast. Don't. And so I think it's about, for us, it was about kind of taking that back and going, yeah, we want to know who you are. We want to hear those amazing things that you've achieved, and we want you to step into being proud of who you are as a person. And I think it's only when we do that, it's this whole thing of like, to help others, we need to fill our own cup, and we need to be able to be who we are and know who we are as well in order to do that. And we will both, happily say we're on the journey ourselves. We're on the path. Yes. It's something that that's why we're talking about it. Are we saying that we're perfect? No. Are we saying that we want to be perfect? No. We're showing up as who we are, and we're going to talk in this podcast, in this episode and in all the episodes, about, frankly, about our experiences and about what we've learned through our experiences, through being coaches, through being coached ourselves. Maybe we should talk a little bit about how we've met and why we've come together. I think that might be a useful thing to...
It's like a meet cute story in some kind of the coaching world, isn't it? In some way. I just want to... So, I was just going to say, kind of just before we do that, I think that's really a good idea. It's this is what we will touch upon, and we hope this is part of the intention for doing this with each episode as well, is that we're not here to say we're the experts. We're not here to say, like you were saying, Anna, we're not like here going, oh, I am so full of myself. Not from that way, that kind of too full of air, that too arrogant, it's faux confident. It's, it's not from that place. It's actually when we're full of ourselves, it's quite ordinary. It's just who we are. And there's less drama, it makes everything a lot easier in our business. So yeah, I think that feels really important to say. But yeah, how we've ended up here basically, and you might be interested to know, you're listening, is that we've actually never met in person. Not yet. Not yet. You might we might have done by the time you hear this, but at the moment of recording, yeah, we've not.
Yeah, we will remedy that. We will remedy that. But I live in Edinburgh in beautiful Scotland. And we originally were connected by another friend, like a mutual friend that we have, the lovely Rachel. Because when I was studying and learning to do life coaching, part of it was to have like a certain number of coaching hours and supervised practice and all of these things. And so it was suggested that we kind of coach our friends and family. And I was in a group of coaches who luckily were all super supportive. In fact, I met two of them this week, including one who came over from South Africa. So it's very exciting.
Wow.
But I kind of suggested to the group, I was like, look, maybe what we should do is a client swap. So we all get a certain number of friends who are interested in it, but then we don't coach our own friends because it's a little bit awkward because, we know each other in, outside of that coaching relationship. We coach each other's friends. And then that way it's kind of, it feels a little bit more authentic. It's a little bit less of me just chatting with my sister and actually helping somebody out. And I actually was I don't know if you even know this, but I was actually the person who chose who got who. So I had this spreadsheet of names. Oh. Yeah, I know. I had this spreadsheet of names and who wanted to swap and how many people wanted and all of that stuff. And you were on my list. Wow. So you were suggested by another one of the coaches in the group. And so we got in touch and I started coaching you and we just always gelled from the beginning, I would say. Yeah. You can put in your own 2 pence worth as well, but I think so. And once I'd finished my qualification and qualified, we just carried on and we started coaching each other.
Yeah, I think that was part of the beautiful thing, isn't it? Like you're saying, there was a resonance every time that we had a session when you were coaching me as part of your training. And as a coach myself, it's that thing, isn't it? Who coaches the coaches? Who therapeutizes the therapists? I don't think that's quite the right word, but you know what I mean? Who teaches the teachers? And it is the same thing again in kind of business, isn't it? Like to have people who are either your kind of mentors or your business coaches or, people that inspire you or inspiring podcasts where you can learn information. This is why we're here, to be able to provide that as a service. So it was always very important to me. And then it was wonderful to continue working. And I think I offered you, didn't I, as a Christmas gift one year, a coaching session from my side, because I also work sometimes with tarot cards as well. And now for about a year and a half, I think, we're coaching each other and it is so rich. And yeah, and then one day we decided, this is a while ago, kind of work together. Oh, actually, no, that's right. I was invited by Anna to be on a podcast for the Jewelers Academy. We did an episode on comfort zones, which is doing amazingly well. And if you're interested in listening to that, let us know and we can pass that link on to you. I'm just realizing how well that we kind of vibe together in this. We both love speaking. I think we're both performers in our own ways. We're both truly authentic. We're both passionate about supporting and helping other women. It is just ingrained in us. Very creative, both of us as well, in the language that we use. And so it just felt like a no-brainer to go, let's collaborate, which are delicious collaborations, and Full of Ourselves podcast, or FOOP, as I like to call it, not to be confused with Gwyneth's Goop, but FOOP has been born in this episode.
It has. And that, I remember when we were on that first podcast episode on comfort zones, as it was just as always our conversations are, there was so much that came out from it. And I think we both love the word collaboration, and that we're greater than the sum of our parts, and that by working together, something bigger comes. And we just were like, okay, as soon as we finished recording that conversation, we're like, right, we need to do this more. Like, this is more here. This is a beginning. This is not an end to something. This is a beginning. And that's where this has come from. It is so beautiful. But I did want to say, actually, that has been a really popular episode, and lots of people kind of commenting on it and really getting a lot from it. And again, that was another reason we thought, actually, we've got something that we can bring and we can share.
And this is part of that ethos, isn't it? Of the being full of yourself, of not holding back, of going, there is something I can offer here. There is some wisdom from my own experiences. I do have stories that I can tell around this that might be helpful for somebody else. And we were talking, we touched upon this before we hit record before, of, yes, this is about standing in the spotlight, but it's standing in the spotlight alongside other women. And I know for me, the richness of coming together as women, how we learn from each other, what we bring, how we inspire, the support that's there, the strength and resilience and power we have as women is. And I think in business for such a long time, there's been this notion, and it's very traditional, very patriarchal, very much so, where, you have to be suspicious of other women, or there's this sense of another woman is competition, or they're a threat. You have to be kind of that bitch in order to make your way up the ladder, and not caring who you step upon to get there. And
you have to have very masculine traits.
Yeah.
That in order to be at, to get to the top, it's the power suits and the the Thatcher vibes, it's that. And we know that that's not true. And we are loving that it's not true, and that we love sharing and collaborating. Absolutely.
Yeah. And kind of just touching upon that around, I think there's a conversation here around that expression, the masculine traits. We understand what that means, don't we? There's a certain kind of vibe, certain energy, certain way of doing something. And it's not really about getting rid of all of that, in a sense, and going, oh, we've got to walk around and sprinkle flowers everywhere and wear bells in our hair and flowing skirts and things. It's a little bit about, I think there's an ownership and reclaiming around the importance of boundaries, of discernment, of being able to ask for what we need and what we want, for being very clear with our no's and our yeses. And I think this is a big one for a lot of women, just in how we're made, of being willing to disappoint others, being willing to, kind of someone not liking or enjoying the choices that we're making, without going into like a whole spiel of justification about why I've made that choice, or why you're no good for this, or why I've gone with that decision. There's something about the reclaiming the assertiveness. It's almost very warrioress like when you think about it, with our bow and arrows kind of pointing out the direction. There's a clarity with that. There's a sense of I know who I am and I know what I'm doing, hence being full of ourselves. Yeah.
Definitely. And it reminds me, well, firstly, I just want to acknowledge that full of ourselves is something I've seen as a quote from the amazing Glennon Doyle, and that she's written about this idea of being, that we need to be full of ourselves. But also she had this quote which just reminded me, and it's particularly for me in the Good Girl Rebellion, which I'm sure we'll get into talking about in future episodes as well. But is this idea of your job is to disappoint as many people as possible before you disappoint yourself. and I think it's so true, because I think especially with the good girls that, the personalities that I work with very much is, and I am like, this is why I'm working with it, because this is me, is that it's always been the other way around. It's about this: don't be too full of yourself, don't be too big for your boots, don't disappoint me. It's like disappoint everyone but yourself, kind of thing. And I think these are important things to live by, but there are also things that we acknowledge, both of us, that are so ingrained in us because it's around our upbringing as women, how that, and it's an unlearning and a relearning and an uncoupling and all of that, and it takes conscious and also kind of subconscious work. There's two things: unconscious work, and we need to kind of start. And hopefully this podcast is going to give you loads of things to consider, loads of different ways to look at the world. And that is our dearest wish for you, is that this really does kind of give you some new tangents to go off on and some new roads to go off on. And also maybe you're not hearing these conversations in your own life, in your own family. And you want to find them, from a found family. Well, here we are. We are here.
Oh, I love that. Our doors, our metaphorical doors are open to do come in, take us. It's very nice in here. There's chaise longues and there's lovely mocktails, nice coffee for those warm days ahead, and so on. Yeah, and this is the thing as well of, like we were saying before, we haven't actually met in person yet. We're now working and collaborating together, and part of running a business as a woman these days is there is a loneliness side of running a business. It's very solitary. It's like, especially if you are still a team of one at this particular moment in time in your business, and you're having to wear all these many caps. Again, part of our intention is that this becomes more of a community space, and we really invite any of your questions or any topics or anything that you'd love for us to, to muse upon, and to bring some of our own knowledge and wisdom as best as we can, and to contribute to the conversation, so that we're all we all have things to share and things to say, and we want this to be a space that feels like a community. You can drop in, you don't feel so alone, you can hear us talk about experiences and go, oh my God, them too. And okay. And that was the way that got kind of resolved or was worked through, or is still being a challenge to work on now. So this imperfect space of wondering how one keeps learning, keeps growing. This is, our businesses are alive. I see our businesses as a relationship. What is the relationship we have with our business? And if we're not, it's like being in any relationship, isn't it? If we're not already arriving to a relationship going, this is me, this is who I am, whoa, you lucky so-and-so, you get all of this. This is what I bring. The high value. We talk about things like high value woman. It's having that sense of yourself and your relationship with your business, and then how that dynamic plays out and where you go with that. I think is a really lovely way of thinking about your relationship, but even just to start with that now, whether you are established in your business, whether you're just starting out, whether you're pivoting, from another business to another, whether you've just left or thinking about, maybe you've not even done that yet, thinking about leaving the traditional employment and wanting to follow an idea of coming back to that sense of, are you really in and showing and believing in? That belief is so important, of the value of who you are to begin with, of the value of your idea, the value of your offering, the value of what the benefits are that you can bring and gift into the world. It has to start with that place. So it's a good question. It's a good question just to ask. Are you full of yourself? Do you live by your values? Are you authentic? Or is there those people pleasing, the good girl? Is there the, I'm going to dim my light because I can't shine bright, otherwise what will people say? What will they think? I might upset that one, and so on. And we're here really to say, just go for it. Because what have you got to lose, really? This could be the greatest adventure that you take. There's one other thing, and one thing I wanted to ask you actually around this is, because what comes to mind with that phrase "full of yourself" is confidence. So I'd like to ask you, Anna, what's confidence to you? What does that mean? Really curious.
Oh gosh, that is a very good question. Yeah, put me on the spot.
Pass the book.
Yeah. I think where I think I'll maybe talk about where I think confidence comes from, because I think it comes from living and making mistakes and owning those mistakes and just keeping moving forwards. Because I think we talk a little bit, I'm sure we'll talk more about this, about when we get stuck, we kind of fight or flight or freeze. And we can kind of get stuck in those things. And I think sometimes when something doesn't go our way, what we need to do is very quickly have confidence in ourselves, even if we don't have confidence in a particular skill or something like that, but just go, I'm going to work this out. I think that's, for me, confidence is about like, okay, this, this is what Muriel Forleo talks about, everything's figure outable. But like, I'm confident in myself that even when I'm doing something new, and I'm walking into a networking group and I've never met anyone before or anything like that I have that ability to believe, I have a belief in myself that I will do my best.
I love that. It's really touching, actually. That turning towards oneself, that's what I'm really hearing of, almost saying, you've got this. I've got this. You've got it. You're okay. And that I guess that then builds the resilience, doesn't it? And then that muscle and then the evidence kind of going forwards.
Yeah, I think if we always go into every situation knowing that we are within ourselves, we're full of ourselves, we're in our value, we're in our integrity, we're going to show up, imperfectly. Not saying we're perfect, and goodness knows I don't want to be, like, we as a real person, and wanting to connect and wanting to do my best. And I think for me that's really important. But what about you? What comes to mind when you think about confidence?
Yeah, I love that. I remember I love etymology of words, so I'm always looking up the kind of the origin meaning of behind words, and I remember looking up confidence, and it's I think it means something like with faith or with trust. I thought, oh, that's really beautiful. So actually it's the confidence is, and you were saying about the connection. I think connection is really important, and again, we're talking about business. That's the kind of the underlying theme of what we are here to talk about. So for me, it's something about trusting in, and this is so much part of my own journey, particularly at the moment as well, of trusting in, having faith in something. And maybe sometimes that's not definable, the something. It could be the feeling we have in our gut. We're good at having gut feelings as women. I think we ignore our own instinctual nature more than is good for us anyway. But I particularly think in business, we have that as a superpower as women. We feel things. We get a sense if something is off, if something is right. We get a nudge from inside. We feel it in our bones, in our gut, in our waters. And my granny used to say she could feel it in her waters. And it's really important to follow that. So there's a trusting with that. You're in cahoots with something else that, like you say, knows that you've got your own back, that you're okay, you're going to be okay. You just have to kind of keep showing up, putting yourself in there. And I think for me, it kind of feels a bit like it's having that kind of faith in, the belief in, and vulnerability as well. The vulnerability, like you were saying, to kind of show up as you are in situations, be real, make mistakes, and know that you're going to learn from that. Feel the disappointments when things don't work out as you want them to, because you cannot enter the world of being a businesswoman if you are not willing to enter the world of failure and disappointments and rejections and things going wrong. it's the hall that comes in as you open that business, the business box, if you like. So yeah, I think it kind of, that becomes part of the strength, the vulnerability of going, I don't know everything. Yes, I'm full of myself in the sense of I know who I am and what I'm here to do, and I'm learning as I go. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, well, I hope that this first episode has really whetted your appetite to listen to more of these conversations. We really want to get you thinking deeply about who you are, how you show up in the world, shining your light, and all of those things. So I guess maybe we could give you some questions to think about at the end of this. So are you full of yourself? And how can you be full of yourself if you feel like you're not yet? That's hopefully what we'll talk about as we go through. And also, what does confidence mean to you? I think that's a really good question that has kind of come out of today. We would absolutely love to hear from you. So please make sure you're following us on Instagram. We are at Full of Ourselves Podcast. I remembered. Hooray.
Yeah, info will be somewhere, wherever you're listening to or watching this. It'll be in the blurb somewhere.
We'll have it all there. And we would absolutely just love you to just connect with us. What would you like us to talk about? Like, what questions do you have? What are your sticking points? What are your things that are coming up for you? Because we absolutely adore collaboration. We really want to hear what is alive for you right now. But thank you so much, Heidi. That was so great.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anna. I look forward to our next episode.